My research takes place at the intersection of digital literacies, multiple literacies, and critical literacy in particular. In this 3-year research project funded by the Ontario Ministry of Research and Innovation and their Early Researcher Award, I work with grades 6 to 8 students and their teachers to explore the question, how can we use digital texts to critically engage learners to become socially and globally conscious of the plight of others in the world? More specifically, the research questions include, what is the relationship between digital media and adolescents' understanding of global issues while immersed in using digital media? How does a critical literacy approach shape what students learn and how they view themselves and their roles in their community? And how do the public performances of students' digital texts reshape the relationship between educational stakeholders, so students, parents, and schools, and the wider community, both on a local and global level? I draw on the work of a number of scholars in the areas of new literacies and multiliteracies and multimedia literacies, which highlight the relevance of new forms of literacy associated with emerging multimedia and multimodal technologies. Traditional forms of literacy that focus solely on reading and writing in the dominant language typically fail to recognize the impact of digital media in adolescents' lives, or take into account students' multilingual and multicultural backgrounds and experiences. In particular, I draw on the work in the area of digital literacies that includes but goes beyond the development of simple technology skills to include skills and knowledge to use a variety of digital media software applications and hardware devices, to be able to be critically aware and understand digital media content and applications, and have the knowledge and capacity to create with digital technology. And Andrew Selber reminds us that we need to be users, critics, and producers of technology. In developing the research activities and analyzing the data, I also attend to the International Society for Technology and Education standards, which categorize the standards in these 5 areas: creativity and innovation, communication and collaboration, research and information fluency, critical thinking, problem solving and decision making, and digital citizenship. The research positions adolescent learners as change agents who can participate on the global stage to enact change. And O'Neill reminds us that at the heart of social justice is the realization that things do not have to continue as they are, but can be changed, and that this change occurs only when individuals act to create it. In terms of the research context, we worked with 3 different classes, which was for a total of approximately 75 students, and we used quantitative surveying and a case study approach. As Bruce reminds us, case studies provide the best articulation of adolescents' media literacy processes, especially as much of the emergent forms of their use has not yet been studied. Data sources include detailed field notes, students' planning, so their notes, their sketches, their conversations, interviews with students and teachers, and the digital texts that the students create, as well as still images, video recordings, and in particular, selected learning and authoring activities. In the planning of the research activities with the participating teachers, we decided to look at the impact of war on children around the world. Remembrance Day was approaching, and the teachers felt that the students did not have a good understanding of world conflict beyond World War I and World War II, and what they experienced in the war video games they tend to play on a regular basis. We partnered with War Child Canada and asked a representative to come in and talk to the students about conflicts that are going on in the world right now. And the representative from War Child came in and gave them some statistics, including that 66% of all casualties in war are children. 18 million children worldwide have been forced to flee their homes because of war, and 300,000 children have been conscripted into armed forces around the world. So the idea of child soldiers became part of the project as a result of that visit. One of the first things that we did with the students was take them to the Robert McLaughlin Art Gallery, and we had them look at the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. They were working in groups of 2 or 3, and they chose one of the articles from the convention and decided how they might represent that article using clay, using the settings that you can see on the slide here. And each group chose a different article, so that in the end we had the articles from beginning to finish in the convention in stop motion. One of the other things that we did with them was have them work in literature circle groups based on a number of different fiction and nonfiction print texts. So these are some of the texts that we see. They worked in groups of about 4 or 5. All the books were related to the impact of war on children, and they had regular meetings both in class and online on a Ning, which is a social media networking tool. They were assigned rotating roles so that each student had a chance to be the discussion leader, the word wizard, focus on vocabulary, or the summarizer. And these were some of the activities that they did during the literature circle activities. They created news reports, they focused on character, they wrote advice columns. So they were still doing traditional writing tasks, but they were doing it based on the media and the theme that we were exploring. I mentioned the Ning. We wanted to tap into the students' out-of-school literacies, and as students who are immersed in things like Facebook and YouTube, we wanted to bring that component of their outside lives into the classroom. But we also wanted to use a safe and secure environment, so we chose a Ning. And we had students blogging and responding to literature and responding to each other on the Ning. We also designed 8 digital literacy centers. Each center focused on a specific topic. They included digital texts to explore through mobile devices, and they required the students to respond back to the text in some way by creating their own digital text. So they would investigate various websites or view a video clip, and then they would still attend to the strands of the language arts curriculum by doing reading, writing, viewing, representing, speaking, and listening activities. So in this way, we had them focusing on being users of the technology. They were also critiquing what they were looking at, and they were producing their own digital texts. The global issues that we looked at in terms of the 8 digital literacy centers included life as a refugee, a focus on the rights of the child, focus on child labor, global issues, a call to answer. So how do we become global citizens and help? Child poverty, human rights and respecting others. We focused in on the rights of children in Afghanistan, whose rights are often abused, and partly because a number of the books dealt with Afghanistan, and we also talked about how to be a good global citizen. The students created culminating projects. They were given a choice of what to create based on every kind of technology that was available to them, as well as things that they might have been familiar with before they came into the project. Some of the students used Scrapblog to create visual blogs. A couple of students deconstructed a war video game using screen captures and video captures, and talked about the assumptions in the video. A couple of groups created lyrics and music, original lyrics and music, to create a song based on what they had learned. All of these digital texts were a way of synthesizing their understanding of what they had learned throughout the project. And I'll just show you just a snippet of a couple of these.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try, and no hell below us, and above us is only sky. Imagine all the people living.
So that was an example of one of the digital poems that one of the students created, and all of the images were her own. And she used a combination of video clips and still images for hers. Another student created a graphic novella using bit strips. So this student was reading a book about Afghanistan, and he decided that he was going to compare what life in Canada was like compared to life in Afghanistan for a child. And you can see he has about 7 slides, but he does it by putting them side by side and comparing them. So in this case, the shortage of water, and in the Canadian side, you know, a math lesson, a typical math lesson, which most children in Canada would take for granted. So he says, in poorer countries, children work for their family and are not encouraged or even allowed to attend school, therefore will not get an education. In well-developed countries, children have the opportunity to go to school and to get an education, which will then lead to a career. The students were also encouraged to share their learning, which is another part of the project that was an important piece. So in this case, they took picture books that were written along the same themes as what they were learning, but written for a younger audience, and they shared these with their reading buddies. They also created 2 school assemblies where they shared their learning with first the junior level students, primary and junior, and then the intermediate students. And then they engaged in an initiative where they raised money for War Child Canada and actually raised about $500. In terms of the findings, the students certainly developed critical literacy skills and digital literacy skills in each of the categories set out by ISTE in terms of creativity and innovation, communication, collaboration, research and information fluency, as well as critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making. Beyond that, it became clear that students were able to express themselves and their critical understandings of the impact of war on children through the multimodal affordances of the digital text that they used, and that the performative value of the text is increasingly important in a digital environment where students are accustomed to creating for an authentic audience that is available on a global stage through the use of social networking media like Ning or YouTube. This research examines what it means when school communities' acts of citizenship are accessed or produced through digital texts and can reach out to the global community to affect change, whether it's social, cultural, or political. And I just want to leave you with Dr. Samantha Nutt's quotation. She's the founder of War Child Canada, and she says, "Education is the greatest gift any of us can ever receive. It's the dividing line between dependence and interdependence, between ignorance and tolerance, between despair and hope." Thank you.